Hi there guys, welcome back. Today I'm taking a look at continuing on the restoration slash upgrades to my Colchester Triumph TR2000 lathe. So this evening what I'm hoping to focus on is removing this oil feed pump that comes, pipe that comes from the oil pump down the bottom there, from the oil reservoir, and I want to install an inline oil filter, and then through the filter, and then what's getting pumped up into the headstock is then filtered oil. So I've seen this done in one video online, so I've kind of pinched the idea, as I think it's a good idea to have the oil filtered rather than pumping any debris back up into the bearings and into the gubbins of the machine. So I'm going to see how we get on with that. I've got these brass barbs here that are suitable for 16mm tubing with a 3/4 BSP thread on the end there, and I'm hoping that that's going to match up with what comes out of this elbow here. If not, then I'll have to cut some new barbs, but hopefully those ones should work for us, and then I can get the pipework connected to the headstock, to the new oil filter, and to the oil pump. So this is the tubing that I've got here. It's oil rated tubing, and that's the filter that I got from a local tractor supply shop. And then I've got a spare cartridge for that as well, so eventually when this filter clogs up I can just swap it out straight away, and these are an easily sourced cheap filter, which I thought was a good option to go for. So I'm going to get on with that, and pleased to be working back on the Triumph now, because it's been a bit long since I've managed to get some time on it, and I'd quite like to get this machine fettled and up and running, because it's a beast of a machine and it's no good just sitting here as a shelf. So first off, I'm just going to loosen up this coupling on the elbow here and get this original pipe removed to see whether the barbs that I have are going to be suitable or not. So it's already looking like that elbow has a finer pitch thread, so I may have to change this elbow out to get this set up to work. Let's remove this little P-clip here. Just going to leave that in place so it doesn't get misplaced. Drop a load of shite in there. So that's a barbed fitting. Sorry, it's an olive fitting there. So that's a compression in the end there. So I think I'll just remove this elbow and change it out for a BSB elbow. So with that elbow now removed, I can get a good measurement of the threads, and I can get a suitable barb or elbow for this. But I'm pleased to get this removed, as I will clean out all of this gunk that's sitting inside there, and make sure the oil ways are as clean as possible before I install the new pipework and filter. So with that side pipe now removed, I'm going to have to wait for some elbows to arrive to go onto this oil filter, as I've been looking at it and I think the best possible spot for it is going to be somewhere like that. So the filter itself is vertical and it can be removed when full, and it can be reinstalled when full. So what I'm hoping to do is add an elbow on either side, one going up for the output, and for the input one going down towards the pump, and then I can just make a little bracket that mounts onto the top here to support the housing of the oil filter. So with that kind of figured out for the moment, I'm going to move on to just cleaning the side of this machine, as I've cleaned off the worst of the rest of the machine, but this section has just been left for the time being. So I've been looking at my belts, and I think I will replace these belts. I was pricing it up last night, and to get 13mm link belt material, I would need roughly 10 meters worth to make up the 4 belts that are 1880mm long. And then there's also the belt for the oil pump as well. So by the time you get 4 of them and a bit more for that, it's about 10 meters, which online from a company, a bearing supplier company, I think it was roughly £220 for a link belt set of 10 meters worth, where you can buy these V belts, which are an A-form V belt, an A74. You can buy them for around £6 a piece. So I think I'll be going for those for sure. So I will remove these belts, and then it's going to give us access to clean everything, and it's going to keep them out the way if I do need to reuse them for the moment. But I will likely just replace them before everything goes back together. And while I've been inspecting the side here, I have actually ran this machine and used it a little bit, but it's got a few gremlins lurking for sure. And as you can see here, one of these change gears is actually missing a tooth, and a few of the teeth are really worn out of shape. So I question whether that's an original gear or whether that's something that someone has made, because the teeth themselves, the profile doesn't look right, the mesh doesn't look proper. So it's working and it doesn't seem to jump, which is so surprising. But I'm gonna have this whole setup off to clean this side, so when I've got that off, I'll measure up the gear and see about possibly cutting a new one, because I don't really want to install that knackered gear back on there for no reason. I'd rather replace it. So that's my plan of attack for today. I'm going to get set up on a time lapse, and I will clean off this side panel and see how we get on. I've been cleaning up the side of this headstock, and I'm really pleased with how it's cleaned up so far. The grime is actually all just wiped off pretty well. It's the odd bit of paint chipping here and there, but it looks on the whole not so bad. I got a little bit ahead of myself when I was cleaning, and then got into the headstock and forgot to start filming. But as you can see, I've removed the speed selector lever tumbler mechanism from the front here, and that is going to give me the access that I need to be able to clean out the bottom of this headstock without removing those rear shafts just yet, as I've had the best feel around of the bearings that I can, and none of them seem to feel or sound bad, you know. So I'm not really that keen on stripping this headstock down to replace all the bearings if it doesn't really need it, because it's quite a task and the bearings themselves are quite hard to source. So it's something that I'm going to look into and see if I could get all the bearings lined up and purchase them, then I might consider it. But if I'm only able to get half of them, then I'm not really that keen, you know. And I don't want to get aftermarket crap bearings. I want original new old stock or decent brand SKF or something like that, you know. So with that sort of sussed, I'm going to set to cleaning out the bottom of this headstock, as I have flushed it and I've wiped down the sides the best I can, and it's looking nice and clean. But the further down you get, the dirt's still there. So I'm going to do my best to remove as much of that as possible without flushing it down into the oil tank. So I'm going to try and wipe out as much as I can, and then we're working with a nice clean headstock, so it's not going to be flushing more and more crud round and round into the filter. I'd like to keep it as clean as possible to start with. So I'm happy with how it's going. I'm going to get on to cleaning out the base now. So I've just got a shot set up there where hopefully you can see the base of this headstock. It's quite difficult to get the camera zoomed in enough with lighting that's any good, but I'm going to try and just pick up some of this grime off the bottom of this headstock here to show you what it's like. It looks quite metallic, so well, the good sign is it's actually coming off fairly easily, but that is very metallic. You can see that glistening in the light there, and it's very gritty as well. So try and wipe this onto some blue roll and just get as much of that out as I can. point where this headstock is starting to clean up quite well, and as you can see there, I've managed to remove a lot of the grime out the bottom there. I'm going to try and get my phone inside here, give this a shot where I can't get my head. So let's get the torch on for you. Right, so let's have a look inside this headstock now I've had a good clean out. So with this side of the headstock now cleaned down as best as I think I need to for the moment, as I'm planning to strip the paint off this eventually and repaint this headstock and the rest of the machine. So for the moment I'm not going to go too far with much more cleaning. I just wanted it to be not covered in grease for when I'm working on the mechanical parts of it, you know. So when I stripped this headstock originally in the first video, or maybe it's the second one actually, when I removed the brake setup, the brake drum and the brake shoes, the brake shoes are completely impregnated with oil or grease. So what I suspect has happened is that the oil seal and the O-ring inside this bushing here has failed, and it's been leaking oil directly into the brake drum, which is never a good thing, you know. So while I've got it this far apart, I'm going to take this seal out and try and get a replacement seal and put a new O-ring on there as well. And I'm going to see if I can get that done without removing this shaft, but I may have to remove this shaft anyway, so we'll see how we get on. So I don't know how well you can see that. There's an O-ring inside there that creates the seal that goes towards the headstock side, and looking at it, it's still intact, so I don't know if that would have been the issue, but there's a bit of grit in there. Aye, so I'll give that a good clean and probably replace that seal anyway. And then it's this rubber seal here that actually seals to the outer face of this collar here, this bushing. That's what I suspect has probably been leaking. So I'm going to try and get that pulled out. I've managed to have a look at the code on it, but nothing seems to come up with the code, so I'm just going to pull the seal out and then get measurements of the bush and the hole that it's going into and just try and order a seal that's suitable. Just going to see if I can get a pick in behind this seal and try and just pull it out manually, or if it's going to need a bit more force. I don't think I'll be able to pull that out by hand. I'll have to try and pry that out. Well, it may be that I have to tap this shaft out of the headstock to get that seal removed there, and that wouldn't be a bad thing, because then I can get in better to clean this corner and check out the bearings that are on this shaft while I'm in there. So I'm a bit reluctant to try and strip all the bearings out, but the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking I might just do it. I might just pull the shafts out and change all the bearings while I'm this far in. It might as well do it while it's in bits now. So I'm just over at the opposite side of the headstock now, and I'm going to remove this cap here to expose the bearings and retaining clip for the shaft. So hopefully with this removed, I'll then be able to tap the whole shaft through the brake shaft there, through the casting. I don't think I can do it like that. I think I need to pull the seal off actually, because behind that seal I'm pretty certain that there's a circlip on that side, so I will have to just pry the seal out, I think. So I've had a bit look at this and checked again in the manual there, and there is definitely a circlip that retains the bearing on this side here, so I can't be knocking the shaft through until I've removed this seal here. It's going to be a shame to have to destroy this seal to get it out, but that's the only way I can see to get it pulled out of there. So I'm going to try and nip away and then pry it out, because I just can't get a purchase on it to pull out hard enough, you know. It's not having it. So I'm going to just have to remove it carefully and then measure up afterwards for a new one. There we go. So, like I say, it's a shame to have to damage that, but I did get a photo of the number before it's been mangled removing it. So I'll try my best to get some measurements and compare what I can find online, get a replacement seal for this, and probably order a spare one so I've got one on the shelf for the future, because it'll not be very expensive, a seal like that. Alright, so now I can get that big circlip out and knock the whole shaft assembly this way. I can't feel any play in these bearings at all. They feel extremely smooth. So I'm a bit reluctant to knock this shaft out, to be honest. I think I've managed to get that seal out, so I could probably install a new one there now without having to remove that shaft. So that might be a better option for the time being. So I've now got the elbows for this oil filter, and I've cut a small piece of angle and drilled some holes in it to mount the housing for this oil filter to. And my plan is to just weld that little bit of angle in place there, and that's going to give space for the oil cap to still be removed and plenty of space for the belts to run where they were and not be affected by the pipe work. So I'm going to get that paint scraped off there and then just get a couple of tacks on with the MIG there. Not really doesn't need to be structural, just needs to be on there, so that should do it. Just get this stripped back now. So I've now got this bracket welded on. I'm pretty sure my gas has ran out though mid-weld. That's why it looks like absolute shit, but it's on there, so that'll do for the moment. I can get my pipe work figured out and all that. Little bit of paint will sort that out. Not really bothered, it's never going to be on show. So I'm going to have to remove this filter from the mount now and get these elbows and barbs all sealed up with oil rated sealant gunk, and then that filter can be reinstalled and I can start looking at how the pipe work's going to go in place. So I'm pleased with that. Doesn't look good, but I'm happy with it where it is with the placement. It's going to do exactly what I need it to do. So, as you can see there, I have got the original compression fitting and a small section of the original plastic piping left on the oil pump, and then I have just slid over the 16mm PVC tubing to feed from the oil pump to the oil filter, through the oil filter and up to the headstock. So for this top half of the oil feed system here, I've done the same, and I've decided to just go ahead and reuse the original compression fitting elbow here to fit into the headstock, and then just cut a section of, I've just left a short section of the original pipe on to allow me to get 2 Jubilee bands on the new pipe work. So that is now a filtered oil feed system all set up and ready to be filled when I've got the rest of the work done. So I'm happy with that, and that's gonna just about do it for this video.